Right. So today we're taking a deep dive into the career of Nicole Kidman. We've got articles here, lots of them actually, mapping out everything from those early roles she had in Australia to, well, becoming a Hollywood icon.
Right.
And we can't ignore the recent controversy surrounding her new film, Babygirl.
Oh, absolutely. That's definitely going to be interesting to unpack.
So ready to go beyond just like the surface level stuff.
Yeah.
Really uncover what makes her career so interesting.
I think that's what makes these deep dives so great. You really get to see the whole picture. I think a lot of people don't realize just how carefully Kidman has had to navigate her career. Yeah. Hollywood's a tricky place.
It is.
And she's had these massive highs and then, of course, those public, setbacks. But she just keeps going, keeps pushing. That's something I think we'll see even more clearly as we look closer.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, those Australian beginnings. Okay. A lot of people point to Dead Calm and Flirting as her breakthrough films. If anyone hasn't seen them, Dead Calm, she stars opposite Billy Zane. It's this psychological thriller. She's so young in it, but she more than holds her own.
Oh, yeah. And those early films were really important. It's where she established herself, showed off that talent and that presence. She's just got this way of holding your attention on screen.
Totally.
But even back then, she wasn't afraid to take risks. You know what I mean? She picks these characters that aren't, always likable, but they're complex. They're interesting.
Yeah, and then you get to 1995, and it really shows her range. You've got Batman Forever, this huge blockbuster, and then on the completely other end of the spectrum, there's To Die For.
Oh, yeah. To Die For.
She plays Suzanne Stone, this woman who, let's just say, is incredibly ambitious and will do absolutely anything to become famous.
It's funny because when I think about To Die For, it almost feels like it foreshadows, in a way, Kidman's own career, right? That ambition, the need to control the narrative. It echoes some of the choices she makes later on.
And then she lands this role in Eyes Wide Shut.
1999.
Yep. Directed by Stanley Kubrick. Now, for anyone who doesn't know Kubrick, he's legendary but notorious too. That directing style of his, so meticulous, always pushing actors to do take after take.
I've heard stories about dozens of takes just to get it exactly right.
Yeah. So for Kidman to even work with him says a lot, not just about her talent, but also how tough she is.
Oh, absolutely. It's demanding working with a director like that. Intense. But for an actor, I imagine it's also like the ultimate learning experience. You're going to be pushed to your limits.
Definitely. And we can't forget, in this movie, she's starring opposite Tom Cruise, her husband at the time.
Yeah.
So that adds this whole other layer of, intrigue, I guess.
The film itself, too, caused a big stir, right? All that explicit content.
Yeah. All of a sudden, you've got Kidman's personal life mixed in with her artistic choices. And honestly, that's something that kind of becomes a theme throughout her career.
It does, yeah.
Then, boom, just a couple of years later, she's in Moulin Rouge, Baz Luhrmann directing. It's this visual explosion, a musical.
It's like she just refuses to be put in a box. You think you know what to expect, and then bam, she throws you a curveball, shows you this whole other side of what she can do. And, who knew she could sing and dance like that?
Right. And it's not like it was just this fun experiment, this side project, The film was a massive success.
Yeah.
It really solidified her as this incredibly versatile actor.
It did. And then, talk about exceeding expectations. There's 2002, and she wins the Oscar for Best Actress.
The Hours. Her portrayal of Virginia Woolf.
Exactly.
Right.
Talk about reaching the pinnacle of critical acclaim.
For sure.
And I think it's worth pointing out that Oscar win, it means a lot for a few reasons. First, obviously it solidifies her as a serious dramatic actress. But it also happens not long after her divorce from Tom Cruise.
Which was, let's face it, very public.
Very public. And I think it highlights the fact that, behind all that Hollywood glamour, she's a real person dealing with real life stuff.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that careers, they're not always these perfect upward climbs. Just like life, really.
Yeah, there are going to be bumps in the road. And even someone like Kidman, as talented and successful as she is, she's not immune to setbacks.
And those setbacks, they definitely come. A few years later, 2008, she teams up with Baz Luhrmann again for Australia, the film. Doesn't quite live up to the hype. Then 2014, Grace of Monaco. Oof, that one gets a lot of negative press, even booed at Cannes.
But what I find interesting is how she responds. She doesn't just retreat, doesn't shy away or start playing it safe. Instead, she sort of shifts gears, starts taking on these smaller, independent projects. It's like she's looking for roles that are more complex, more challenging.
And this is where things get really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because this is when she starts taking more control, not just as an actress, but as a producer.
Right.
She co-founds Blossom Films, her own production company, and really starts pushing these female-driven stories.
Big Little Lies, 2017. Perfect example. HBO series tackles tough subjects, domestic violence, female relationships. It's a critical darling, a commercial hit. And not just that. Kidman and Reese Witherspoon, they were both producers on the show, and they negotiated equal pay for themselves. Setting a precedent, really.
Yeah, it's like she's saying, I'm not going to wait around for the right roles to come along. I'm going to create them.
Exactly. And then what we've got to talk about Babygirl,
Right.
right? All that recent controversy.
The film explores teenage motherhood, child exploitation. Some people are calling it insensitive, even exploitative itself.
It's a bold move, no doubt.
It is. But, Kidman's never been one to shy away from tough subjects.
She's defending it, saying it's meant to be uncomfortable, to make people talk about these things. And honestly, it does seem to fit with her career, doesn't it? Taking on roles that challenge the audience, even if it means courting controversy.
So how does all of this fit into the bigger picture of her career? Is this just another example of her pushing boundaries, or is there something more going on?
That's a great question. And honestly, one we'll have to explore as we keep going with this deep dive. But I think it's safe to say that with Babygirl, Kidman's reminding us that she's not just a talented actress, she's a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely. Stay with us as we unpack the Babygirl controversy and see how it fits into the bigger picture of Nicole Kidman's extraordinary career. We'll be right back.
So picking up where we left off, let's really get into this idea of Nicole Kidman and controversy, specifically with this new film, Babygirl. How do you think this movie fits into her career, overall?
I mean, it's bold to tackle a topic like that,
Oh, yeah.
Teenage motherhood, exploitation,
Yeah.
sensitive stuff. Was this a calculated risk, you think?
Yeah.
Or is it more about her staying true to, her artistic vision, doing what she wants to do?
It's tricky, right? I think it's probably a bit of both. If you look back at her career, Kidman's always been drawn to roles that challenge norms, expectations.
Mhm.
To Die For, Eyes Wide Shut.
Those both definitely stirred things up.
They did, yeah. They pushed boundaries. And now with Babygirl, she's going even further. This is a topic that most people would probably consider taboo, right? But instead of avoiding it, she seems to be leaning into that discomfort, using her platform to, maybe force people to think about these things, have the conversation.
Almost like she's saying, look, if we're not talking about this stuff, then we're not really dealing with the world as it is.
And that's where I think her power comes in. As an artist, right? She's not just entertaining us, she's making us confront uncomfortable truths, to think critically about, maybe our own beliefs, our own biases.
It's making me think about that shift to producing, with Blossom Films. It seems like that gave her so much more control, didn't it? Over what stories get told.
Oh, absolutely. Becoming a producer, it means she's not just waiting around for someone to give her the opportunity. She's creating those opportunities. And that means she can push for projects that honestly might not get made otherwise. The ones that challenge the status quo, shake things up.
Like Big Little Lies?
Exactly. It dealt with domestic violence, these really complex relationships between women, and it was a huge success, but it also sparked a lot of important conversations. And let's not forget, Kidman and Reese Witherspoon, they fought for and got equal pay on that show. It's huge.
Yeah, they used their power to actually change the industry.
Mhm.
So we've seen Kidman navigate Hollywood, right? She's had those ups and downs, reinvented herself as a producer, and always chooses roles that push boundaries. For herself, for the audience, what do you think? What's her legacy going to be?
Oh, man, that's the big question, isn't it? I think at the end of the day, Nicole Kidman's legacy is going to be one of, fearless artistry. She takes risks. She pushes those boundaries. She's not afraid to explore, even the darker sides of what it means to be human.
And she's not afraid to use her platform to, make people think about important things, even if it means some people aren't happy about it.
That's it. Her career, it really shows us what's possible when you're willing to make bold choices, to not let yourself be limited by, expectations or what society thinks you should do. That's a lesson for all of us, I think, not just people in Hollywood.
It's about embracing challenges, pushing yourself, even if it means getting uncomfortable.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes her work so interesting to watch. She's not trying to give us these easy answers, these predictable stories. She's asking us to engage with the world in a real way, to grapple with complexity, with those difficult questions, and to honestly be okay with being a little uncomfortable sometimes.
It's amazing to think about how, after all this time in the spotlight, she's still pushing the envelope, finding new ways to challenge herself, challenge us.
There's a real dedication there.
Yeah.
A passion for storytelling. Makes you wonder what she'll do next.
I know. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take stock for a minute. What have we learned, right, from this deep dive into Nicole Kidman's career? What are some things our listener can take away?
That's a good point. One big takeaway, I think, is that success doesn't always follow a straight line. There are going to be ups and downs, triumphs and setbacks.
Like those films that didn't quite hit the mark? After Australia, Grace of Monaco?
Yeah.
She could have easily just, retreated. But she didn't. She reinvented herself. To control of her own story.
It shows you how important it is to be resilient, to be adaptable. You have to be open to change.
The other thing that keeps coming up is, those bold choices, right? Kidman's career is basically a lesson in how to not be afraid to take a risk.
To push those boundaries.
To choose roles that make people think, that make them uncomfortable.
And yeah, those choices, they don't always work out perfectly. But they've kept her front and center in Hollywood, kept the conversation moving forward. And I think that's inspiring. For everyone, really.
It reminds you that sometimes the art that has the biggest impact, it's the art that makes people uncomfortable, that challenges the status quo, that says something, even if it ruffles a few feathers along the way.
And that's a message that goes way beyond Hollywood. It's about, living life on your own terms, following your passions, and never being afraid to challenge the way things are.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what's the final thought you want to leave our listener with today?
I think it comes back to what we were just talking about, embracing that discomfort, seeking out art, experiences that challenge your perspective, that make you think about the world in a different way.
Because that's where real growth happens.
Really. And I think Nicole Kidman's career, with all its complexities and contradictions, it really proves that point.
We've really dug deep into Nicole Kidman's career choices in this deep dive, and I think, one thing's for sure. She knows how to pick roles that stay with you, the kind that make you think,
I know exactly what you mean. She just never shies away from those messy, complicated stories like Remember to Die For?
Yeah.
Ambition, just warping everything. Or Eyes Wide Shut. That was all about desire, but the dark side of it.
And now Babygirl. She's really going there,
Yeah.
bringing these really difficult issues to light, things we, as a society, maybe don't like to talk about.
It's interesting, isn't it, this idea of pushing boundaries? It seems like it's been a constant in her career, not just something new. It's been there all along, I think.
You're totally right. Think back to those first films, those Australian ones. Dead calm. There's this underlying darkness there, an intensity. It's almost like a glimpse of the kind of role she'd really embrace later on.
Totally. And as her career progressed, that willingness to explore those darker themes, it just became more pronounced. Like, she's fascinated by the things people try to keep hidden, the underbelly of human nature.
And in doing that and bringing those things to light, she's forcing us to confront them too.
Exactly. She's not giving us easy answers or, trying to sugarcoat things. She wants us to wrestle with those tough questions, to examine our own beliefs, to leave the theater or, turn off the TV with more questions than answers.
So as we wrap up, what's the one thing you really hope our listener will take away from all of this, from this exploration of Nicole Kidman's career?
I think it comes back to that idea of being okay with being uncomfortable, whether it's seeking out art that challenges you, being willing to have those tough conversations, or just, questioning what you believe. It's in those moments, those uncomfortable moments, where you really grow.
Kidman's career is kind of a perfect example of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
She's never backed down from taking risks, pushing boundaries, even making us, the audience, squirm a little.
She has, and because of that, she's left her mark on Hollywood, yeah, but on all of us who've watched her evolve. She's shown us what a woman can do when she's confident, when she chooses her own path, and she's not afraid to make a few people uncomfortable along the way.
It's been amazing, hasn't it, to go on this journey with her, from those early Australian films all the way to, all the buzz surrounding Babygirl. And remember, this deep dive, it's just a starting point. There's so much more to discover in Kidman's work.
So go out there, keep exploring, challenge yourself, find the stories that make you think, that make you feel something real.
And hey, maybe you'll even find yourself drawn to those films, the ones that make you shift in your seat a little, the ones that really get under your skin.
Those are often the best ones.
Until next time, keep diving deep.